Marjot and I were sleeping through the night, feeling a little crabby about the people we'd sent on our way, but hoping they'd be alright. There's enough bad going on here. We were keeping each other company and making each other happy in the sack, if you know what I mean, and there was still stuff laying everywhere from our return journey. We got up, had food and beers, coffees. I tossed some horseshoes. I've been needing something to do for a while. Marjot had a beer as well, did some cleaning, and we started putting stuff away. Didn't take us too long. I got to the business of cooking. We were going to need a bunch of food stored up again. Marjot was working with the animals, then she decided to take a walk around, just check things out. There was a raccoon laying around, so I butchered it up. Didn't want it getting rotten on me. I did some cleaning as well. It's never a good idea to cook in a dirty kitchen. After that, we were off to bed. We were both excited to lay down together, have some fun. And when we got up the next day, Marjot had some food, so did I. She did some cleaning, fixed a broken freezer, and I got right back to the business, doing some cooking. She set up that gun for us, right near our entryway, and she started repairing some of our damaged walls as well. I kept right on cooking and cleaning. She kept working with the animals. Turns out we didn't have any power run for our gun, so she got on top of that as well. She'd been milking camels everywhere, so there was milk laying all around the place. I had myself a beer, took a break from the cooking, found some rotten little colorful leaves in our storage area and threw those out. It was good times. I enjoyed cooking. She seemed to be running around like a mad person. She'd built the power conduit, so the gun was working. She got to the business of researching. I got to the business of cooking more and more. And things were going alright. Decided to make a bunch of fine meals. Something to keep us happy. Seemed like a good play over the pemmican. And about 10 o'clock, we were off to bed once again. Our bedroom was a mess, but that didn't stop us from having a little fun in there. The whole place was a mess, actually. One of the camels gave birth around that time. When we got up, we was back to business as usual. Cooking, eating. Marjot working with the animals. Finally finished all the cooking. Decided I'd better get this rice taken care of. Marjot was running around doing a great job cooking. She decided to use that telescope that I brought back from the city. And she looked like she was having a good time with it. I kept right on working on the rice. Before I decided I'd better haul in that milk. The rest of the stuff that was laying around. That's a whole lot of rice to deal with. That was going to take a while. It's also a whole lot of animals, so Marjot dealt with them. She was making good progress, researching how to use those heat vents, make power with. And once again, about 11 o'clock, we were back to bed. Turns out some other factions are getting crabby with us, but that's alright. Not terribly concerned with them. Marjot's clothes are looking pretty bad, so we decided to set up the tailoring bench. I'd have a go at making some replacements for both of us. Decided we were going to move the animals, shift the growing zone over, see if we could make our home a little bit bigger. We had some space, why not leverage it? And we were getting a whole lot of rice that we may or may not need, so we built them a little covered area to sleep in. Made plans, make some pants, shirts, even some new parkas. We had tons of material, so why not? I worked through the rice. She worked on the research, keeping the place clean. I took a break once in a while for a meal. She did the same. Eventually I had all the rice picked. It was time to replant. She was tossing horseshoes while I was working on the rice still. It was going in the ground rather nice. I could hear the horseshoes over there tinking away. I was off to bed and she joined me not too much longer. Still feeling a little bit crabby, but moods are improving. The more we got done, more time that passed, better we felt. Eventually I got all the rice done. She also figured out how to get that power thing working, so that was great. Next up, we were going to work on some advanced stuff. She was going to figure out how to make fancy little electronics. Going to be the first step, figuring out if we could ever get ourselves a ship of our own to get off this planet. I got to work on the clothing. She was going to be grateful for that. She kept milking these camels everywhere. I kept finding milk, so I was taking a walk around. She was working hard. I was hardly working for the minute. But, gotta stay busy. Can't walk around all day lost. So I made shirts and pants. She was off to bed pretty early that night. It was only about 7. I decided to follow her. Turns out we're tired. Keeping each other up through part of the night. Don't get a lot of sleep. Not that that stopped us from doing it. We planned on building a little wall addition, capturing that power generator that was nearby. Marjot left some milk in the door. That wasn't a good play. The way things go around here, we'll get ourselves killed. 4 a.m. I got back to bed. Some kind of crazy weird ship fell out of the sky. It was making a weird noise. It had started a bunch of fires. Unfortunately, it started raining as well. Marjot started working on the little wall we were going to build around the power generator. She wasn't the best constructor in all honesty, but gave her something to do other than sit at the research bench. I got up and had a meal. Decided to start working on that wall. Some other stuff fell out of the sky, but it looked like some useful material. So I ran on down there to grab that while she kept working on the wall. Camels are running around everywhere. That's alright. I'd grabbed that gun Marjot had purchased for me. I was going to test the range on it. Turns out it's pretty significant. Hopefully it packs a real punch. Can deal with whatever pops on out of that ship. Assuming something does. Nothing around here ever goes well, so I assume the worst here. We focused on that wall. And it didn't take too long, we had it done. We're going to have to run some power conduit over there to it. If we were going to leverage it, it's high time we could take that wood-fired generator apart. Save us a little bit of work. Not always having to deal with that. Gonna need a door on that new little private area where the generator was. So I thought about that. Marjot was off to bed a little bit early that night again. I had myself a meal. Then I had myself a beer in the silence. Thinking about the place being such a mess, decided to clean it up. Thought the beer was good. I wasn't too pleased wearing all this military gear, but it was better than getting killed. I was off to bed about 11 o'clock. I was soaking wet from the rain, but otherwise I didn't have anything to complain about. Next morning, Marjot was up first. She started working on the power conduit we were going to build. She also snuck a beer right in the storage room. Maybe we'll grow some hops, make our own beer here. I was working on building that door. She was taking apart the old generator. We had plenty of battery power to last us for the short term. And I was getting hungry. She was doing some research, so I had a meal. Put up some walls. some roofs over the walls for whatever reason. Didn't seem super necessary, but probably wouldn't hurt. I got to the business, building that new generator. Should have more power than we can use at this point. I could hear the camels getting a little frisky outside the wall. Marjot decided to go milk one of them out there. And she laid down, just chilled out. I was working away on that new generator. I decided to get to the last parka. Some random fella wandered in. Seemed like a pretty negative guy, in all honesty. Plus he was butt naked. Rather feral, in all honesty as well. Marjot constantly working with the camels. Constantly leaving milk everywhere. Me working on parkas. I decided it was probably time to deal with that ship. So I suited up. My big fancy set of armor. Told all the animals to hide inside. And then I ran on down there. Decided to take some shots at that ship. Wasn't too much that came out of it. 3 crazy looking robots, blades for arms. I tried to shoot them. I didn't have the time. I had to flee. They started bashing on the door. Fortunately, it was made out of sturdy stuff. Camel was wandering around on the inside. I felt like a real beast carrying this gun around. It was pretty badass, in all honesty. Those critters bashed down the door for a while. Then they started falling victims to our traps. These traps weren't the best. They were only made out of wood. I was trying to shoot them, but it was hard down the corridor. I held out, did the best I could. Marjot came running out with her gun about that time. She heard me shooting, heard the traps going off. I was shooting, wasn't having much luck. I was going to have to get those animals to safety. They were just lurking around everywhere. One of those critters ended up making it inside the base. Marjot was giving it the business, and so was I. Also, so was our little gun that I'd brought back from that abandoned city. So it didn't take much to drop it. I was going to get to the business of cleanup, send Marjot outside, see if she could destroy whatever the heck was out there yet. We were also going to rebuild our traps out of steel this time. Turns out the wooden ones may not be the best bet. So we planned that. As Marjot was running on out, started shooting that ship to bits. She was giving it the business pretty good. There was an alpaca that had been injured in the firefight somehow. We were going to end up having to take him down. He's going to die regardless. That ship left us a bunch of decent stuff to use. So Marjot picked up the best of what she could, brought it on inside. We'd get to the rest, no doubt. I decided to take that alpaca out. It was clearly suffering. As soon as I shot it, it looked like a rat jumped on it and started eating it. It's pretty disgusting. That wild fella ran right on inside of our place. Started eating the camel milk that was laying around. I wasn't sure what we were going to do about that. We didn't know how to bring him back from the feral state he was in. We didn't have the skills. But we were in bed, feeling safe. If he started bashing the door down, we'd have to bash him down. We even got a little excited at the prospect of someone hearing us messing around. At some point during the night, that fella had stepped on our only trap that we'd rebuilt. And he certainly wasn't going to make it. So Marjot ran on outside. She picked him up, put him in a bed, got him tended, lest he bleed out. At least we can do something good for once. It took quite a bit of medicine. Get him nurtured back from the brink of death. But Marjot did the job just fine. We were bringing in them alien corpses. Some kind of robot Could check those out at some point, see what they're made of. We're getting a little short on meals as well, so I decided to make some more of those. Do a little butchering. We got that alpaca brought inside, put him in the freezer for now. Marjot was working with the animals. I got back to the business of cooking. And we let the animals range again. No sense keeping them inside. Marjot was building traps. I was making food, butchering up the critter, doing some cleaning. And I decided to use that telescope. That was pretty cool. Even in daytime from this planet, you can see stuff out in space. Marjot built traps, had herself a coffee, and I made meals. We had a fair amount of steel laying around, so that'd be pretty solid. We stayed busy, per usual. Marjot was having a beer as I was cooking meals. Place was kind of a mess, but not too bad. I stopped cooking to eat a fresh meal. Always better than a frozen. And Marjot still building traps. We made a plan to add a little room on to our little home. And I was off to bed. She was working on traps. That fella seemed to be recovering okay. He was in pretty bad pain, but there wasn't much we could do for him. Outside of euthanization, anyway. Marjot had a meal about 1 a.m. and then she was off to bed. I felt her staring at me in the night. Not sure why she didn't sleep. Someone contacted us, saying they were being chased about that time. There really wasn't anything we could do here with our hands full. I decided to take off that armor I'd been wearing. Didn't make any sense to wear it all day. It's nice to be out of it, in all honesty. And then it was back to the business of cooking food. Transport pod came screaming down about that time. Some girl named Zeppy. She was in pretty rough shape. Seemed like a rather neurotic type. Plus she was pretty hostile to us. We didn't really have anywhere to put her, so given her hostility, we decided to let her lay. Her plight was not ours for the minute. I kept on cooking, stopping to clean occasionally, and was making good progress getting all the meals done. I fed Wilfred. He was finally coming around. Seemed like an alright guy. A little bit crabby though, if you ask me. And he decided he was going to join us. We thought about giving him his walking papers right away. But in the end, decided maybe we'd give him some kit to see him on his way. We had some somewhat worn out clothes, but they'd be better than running around naked. So we gave him Marjot's old shirt. Gave him one of them pairs of pants I'd recently made, which was in perfectly great condition. Plus they were leather, so they'd hold up for quite a while. So he put those on. We even decided to let him take a gun. There's a pretty good quality machine gun over there. Wasn't going to do us any good. So we gave him that as well. I was still cooking meals. Marjot was working on the new room we're building. And Wilfred was all ready. We sent him on his way. He was crabby about it, but we did the best we could. I'm sure we'd be crabby about it as well. But it was what it was. We didn't need a bunch of extra mouths to feed here. Plus his negativity was already getting to us. He wandered on out. Wasn't moving too fast in all honesty, but he'd get there. We were working on that little room, stopping occasionally for a coffee or something. Marjot was continuing to work on traps. And when the room was done, we planned a little light. Gonna have to do something about floors in there as well. Hopefully that fella could make it to safety before something showed up here to kill him. We didn't want to see him get hurt. Some chunks of ship fell out of the sky about that time. Also, the sky turned kind of yellow. Things got kind of weird. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do. Seemed like there was some kind of poison coming out of the sky. And we were sleeping through the night. I was worried about food. Also about all the animals we had. This poisonous situation wasn't gonna do him any favors. Also decided we should probably get the rice brought in while we can. We're gonna have to store the rice somewhere else so the perishable stuff could be kept frozen. Marjot got right on top of that. And Campbell seemed to be doing fine so far. Maybe they'd hold up pretty well to it. We were running around. One of our power cables exploded. Was risking blowing up all of our food, burning it to bits. That poor woman had passed away that had fallen out of the sky. We both worked on traps together for a few minutes, trying to get some kind of security in place. And there was milk blocking the door once again. We were running around like crazy. Turns out we hadn't been putting the milk in the freezer, but we agreed that was probably a good idea, so we made that happen. I was already starting to feel pretty sick, so was Marjot. I needed to get this rice taken care of, lest we run out of food. We didn't have an infinite supply here. Marjot was having a beer, and I was tossing some horseshoes. And we're both just relaxing, doing our thing, feeling pretty good despite the crazy weather situation. If weather you can call it. I had a meal. Marjot was running around, putting stuff where it belonged. I was focusing on the rice. She was trying to focus on the traps. I was getting sicker every second. She was in better shape than I, but still not great. So I kept right on plucking rice while I could stand up, getting it put away properly, and I was off to bed. She was working on a trap. About that time, a crazy group of animals showed up. A whole lot of pissed off cows. We were gonna have to keep our own critters inside, which is probably for the best. Gotta show them where to go, lest they get sick and die on us. Good chance we'll be putting some of them down if we can find the room, keep all the meat, the bodies. We decided ourselves to stay inside as well. It's a whole lot of cows, 17 of them, and it didn't make sense to be out and about trying to battle with them. There was a ship chunk laying in the river still. We'd have to get to that at some point. Marjot took the dangerous route in, walked over all the traps, but she made it safely. We were both so tired, we'd fallen asleep right in the dirt. Not sure what the heck we were thinking, but we eventually got it figured out. The last of our camels came inside, right as those cows showed up. All of our power went out about that time as well. Seems like when it rains here it pours. We were sleeping cozy. Not many complaints. I woke up and had some food. Got back to the business of working on the rice. Hopefully I'd get it all before I got too ill. I could hear them cows out there making a hell of a ruckus. Marjot kept working on the critters that we had inside. The power came back on about that time, which was good. Marjot started throwing up roofs to keep us out of the stuff that was dropping out of the sky. That was fortunate. She also put some additional ones up to help the animals. And I decided to grab what I could of the rice, which happens to be all of it, and get that stuff put away properly. Marjot started working on that new room. Might as well stay inside and do some stuff. keep ourselves from getting too sick. We're gonna have to keep an eye on these animals. Can't have them getting ill. Some of those cows started falling on our traps. Wasn't much we could do for them though. Certainly weren't about to go out there. Marjot was working with the animals. I had a coffee. Some cargo pods fell out of the sky. A whole bunch of meat, which would have been really nice had we had a way to get to it. We may have to put some more doors near our trap area so we can access them safely. That was going to be a project for the future. We didn't really have a lot of stone block laying around. We didn't want to waste a ton of steel. I was working on clothes, feeling pretty ill. Marjot had a meal and a tea, and got back to dealing with the animals. I had myself a beer, despite my sickness. Marjot got a bunch of hair off one of the camels. Certainly had a fair amount of materials laying around here. At that point, we were both off to bed. I was feeling pretty sick. A little crabby about how cold it had gotten last night when the power had been out. Marjot was pretty sick as well. We were going to have to certainly take some time indoors and see if we could recuperate. Those cows had to be feeling it by now as well. They were running around like crazy. I suspect they'd all be dead before too long. Sadly, they'd probably be poisoned. Closed the vent in our room to try and keep the heat in the side we were sleeping in. I got back to making clothes. Marjot went to working on the floor in the new room, in between helping out the animals with their milk issues. I decided some more meals are probably in order. We had so many materials, see what we could leverage before any of it goes bad. We still had a ton of eggs, which is pretty awesome. The cows seemed to be chilling out. A lot of them were down. Some of them were already skeletal. Marjot was trying to toss horseshoes, being swarmed by animals, which looked pretty silly in my opinion, but she seemed to be having fun. I finished the meals and got to the floors, which is where Marjot was working. Stopped for a meal. She stopped to help the animals out again. I was sicker than I'd care to be, but there was work to be done. Despite that, I was off to bed. She continued working on those floors, see if she could make any progress. She also continued working with the animals. Good chance we're going to have to put some of them down. We just wouldn't have the food for this many critters. Camels each had a house and home. But if we keep a male and a female, I'm sure they'd make some more. Well, that night, I was feeling sick as could get. Marjot wasn't much better. We were sleeping well. Our animals were already getting pretty sick. That didn't bode well. Cows seemed to have chilled out though, so that was alright. We decided we're going to have to put some rice out, lest the camels starve. So I made a plan for that in the back of my brain. Can't have those guys dying on us. Not all of them anyway. And the less we got for food around here, the more delicious they'd look, no doubt. And that was that. It had been a hell of a few days. Things are feeling pretty rough. Fires are raging. Toxic stuff's falling out of the sky. But we were cozy in bed together. Life went on.